Speaking of coolness, they don't get much cooler than Daniel Rodriguez.
Hey, what up? What up, Mike? How's it
Going on,
going?
D-Rod?
Good, man. Just right here, back home in LA, celebrating the win.
Dude, tough, hard-fought victory. Congratulations. We'll talk about that. When you were having that fight, I just like, because you've got such an interesting story. I was like, we've never had D-Rod on the podcast. What the hell's going on, man? We got to get him on. Saturday night, though, Morono, he's got a weird rhythm and timing. And it seemed like it took you a little minute to kind of settle in and kind of make the reads. Is that correct?
Yeah, the first round definitely. During fight camp, didn't expect him to be swinging as hard as he was. You know, throwing every strike pretty much. You know, with bad intentions. And he was a lot faster. And of course, he has a very unorthodox styles, like untraditional compared to like, you know, the normal. It's not as technical, but it's you know, different. You know, it reminded me a lot of like a street fight. So, you know, took me a round to figure it out. You know.
Yeah, no, absolutely. As you say, it is kind of weird because and again, I've said this a few times on the show, but if people don't follow the rules, it makes it really hard to read. You know what I mean? Like typically there's a pattern to the striking and he's kind of a little unconventional. He was winging that overhand right and he was looking for the knockout. I don't know if you knew, but Saif Saud was like in between rounds. He's like, dip your head more. You can knock this guy out. Go for it. And he was trying to swing, man.
Yeah, I mean, the guy definitely packed some power, which kind of like made me a little hesitant in the first round. I'm like, okay, it's like, because a couple of those hit me, and you know, and it weren't enough to stun me or anything like that, but I knew he was dangerous. So
yeah,
as the round went on in the first round, I could tell he was starting to slow down, you know, and I started feeling as much power. So going into the second round, I knew I had to pick up the pace definitely, and my coaches were telling me like, yo, you know, I'll give it to him. He did take the first round. You know, I was trying to, you know, kind of figure him out, you know, but, you know, in this game, you know, it's 5 minutes, you know, and I'll get his 5 minutes around and, you know, I had to act quickly, you know, and make the adjustments.
Yeah, well, you did make the adjustments and you clearly won the next two rounds. It was a fun fight. You should be proud of yourself. And I'm assuming there's a bit of relief now because, you know, the last three fights, there's been circumstances, but you didn't get the wins. How good does it feel now to kind of have that pressure off?
Man, it's a huge relief. It's a good feeling, man. I've been giving this shit my all. I've been, you know, giving the sport of MMA my all the past, you know, few years since being in the UFC. And you know, I've been giving some tough fights, you know, and it's a good feeling to like be fighting these big names and guys with all the experience, you know, because it makes me feel amongst, you know, I definitely feel I'm one of these guys. I'm one of these tough top name opponents in the UFC, and to, you know, finally get a win after, you know, having a couple tough losses, close fights, you know, it's just a good feeling. It's definitely a relief. It makes me feel like I'm still where I belong, you know, and I feel like I still have a lot more to accomplish in the game.
Yeah, no, without doubt. And I always love watching your fights, Daniel. I'd like it if you could share a little bit about your story and what brought you to mixed martial arts, because you've been very open, you know, that you're in trouble with the law and stuff like that. And I think it's inspirational, and it's I think people should know about that because, and I've been very open. I was kind of a similar way, not quite as much trouble as you, but you know, you find something that gives you a purpose, and you use your energies and your certain talents that you have and channel it in the right way, and then you can turn it all around. And I think you're living proof of that.
Yeah, man. Like for the people that don't know, I like what brought me to the sport of MMA was just I became a fan of the sport like late in my life. I mean, I want to say late. I was like 23, 24 when I first like discovered, you know, MMA or UFC as a fan. Because before that, I had just been a fan of boxing. I always wanted to be a boxer. As long as I can remember, all my family functions were boxing events. You know, like. It's just like, you know, in our culture.
Yeah.
But really you know, my upbringing was totally unconventional and untraditional to the average, you know, fighter that's been doing this since they were a kid doing karate and shit, you know. So I grew up in the system, like in the jail system out in LA, Los Angeles County. I've been all over the juvenile system. I've been all over the LA County jail. You know, I never I never went to a state prison, but I did get a prison sentence that I served in the LA County Jail. You know, I did out of a year, I ended up doing 8 months and 20 days. That was my longest stint. And really like what helped me change is like I got tired of it, man. I got tired of like going to jail and coming back, and my life would be, I'd have to reset. I have to restart my life. I lost everything, my job, my car, everything. And I got tired of that. I got tired of the cycle, you know, and in LA, it's hard. It's really, really hard to get out of the cycle. You know, the system is built like it's like a system, like a revolving door. Like, yeah, they let you out of jail, but they also have restrictions, and you can't drive and you can't do this and this and that, you know, so it makes it extra hard. But I just got tired of that lifestyle, man. I got tired of, you know, living like, you know, just on the run, like living like a bad life, you know, and I got tired of the gang life. I got tired of like going in and out of jail, and I started having kids, and I started looking for a way with no experience, with no life experience. I started looking for a way to live like a different life, you know,
Well,
and I found MMA. I found,
do you mind if I ask, Daniel, what kind of stuff are we talking about?
yeah, just like gang related activity. A lot of the stuff that I did was, you know, sometimes, I mean, for, for fighting, you know, I'm fighting at clubs, you know, selling drugs, stealing cars, vandalism, like doing graffiti and stuff. I was really into graffiti art. Um, and you know, a lot of the times that I did go back to jail was because I'd be in my old neighborhood and the cops already know who I was, so they'll pull me over and be like, "Hey, you know,
Yeah.
you're not supposed to be here." And then they'll have weed on me, or you know, like my probation officer will come and they'll drug test me, and I'll be smoking weed, or hanging out with my friends. There's a thing called like a gang injunction where you're not supposed to be in your neighborhood or be with your friends. And a lot of times I'll violate my probation. So for a long time, I
So
would,
what would happen? Let's just say you're hanging out with your friends, because I'm trying
yeah,
to understand that. Obviously, I grew up in the northwest of England, very, very
yeah.
different to the area that you grew up in. So you're prohibited from hanging around with certain friends, gang members, whatever you want to call them. So you're hanging out. They find out that you are. They come and arrest you. What's the next step from there?
Yeah. So then they'll like say I'm out with my friends on a Friday, and they'll keep me over the weekend in a substation in LA somewhere. Then come Monday morning, I'll go to court and they'll set up a probation violation hearing. So a lot of the times when they'll pull me over, they'll ask like, "Are you on parole or probation?" So I would have to say yes, because if I say yeah and they look anyways and they find out, that's a violation in its own. So I have to keep it real with them, and then they'll run my stuff, and they'll be like, "Hey, you know, you're not supposed to be here in this neighborhood or hanging with this guy," or like they have a right to search you or anything. And if I have anything on me, it's a reason to violate me. So that's the reason. There would be a reason to take me in, and you know, give me another 3 months. So for a long
3 months.
time, yeah, 3 months, 2 months, you know, just as a
Shit.
violation. So for a long time, I was stuck in this cycle.
Three, just for a bullshit thing like that, 3 months.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
probation
insane.
violation.
Wow.
And that's what I'm saying. For a lot of people, it's hard to get out because a lot of us don't have anywhere else but the house we were in when we got arrested, and they're saying we can't
Yep.
be there, you know? So it's kind of like a trap, man. It's like a system that it's hard, really hard to get out. And to get out of it, it takes a lot. You got to like truly want it from the inside. So um, I found MMA, man, and I went. But before that, I'm not gonna lie, I've been in a ton of street fights. I've been in jail fights. I've been in fights with my cellmate. I've been in fights. So like I kind of carry that into the cage when people are like, man, he looks like he's calm. You know, he's like, you know, I'm just comfortable in uncomfortable situations. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I
Wow.
found the sport of MMA, and I finally had, you know, on top of having kids, but I finally had something I was good at, you know, which was pretty much everything I've been through in life just kind of made me good at fighting, and you know, kind of surviving tough situations. So that kind of helped change the whole path, man. And you know, it just kept winning. I kept, as soon as I figured it out and figured something I was actually good at, I gave it everything I got, because I never played any sports. I never I never was good at anything, you know. I was just a troublemaker. I just always was in love with of having respect in the neighborhood, and you know, and now I get it in a whole different, I mean, excuse my language,
Now you go.
in a whole different sense. And it's for a guy like me and the story that I have and where I've taken it now is so inspirational, especially in the city of LA and California, and anyone who's ever been in my situation where you live in the hood and you want to make a way out, but it's very, very hard, especially given the background and all the criminal history and it's just the tattoos. It makes it really hard, to once you decide that, or have kids or whatever it is that makes you want to change. It makes it even harder to try to find something, because I mean, I had found a decent job in construction, but man, I hated it. It was like it was the toughest job in construction. I was a union iron worker where pretty much I was just hauling rebar on my shoulder all day, placing it, and I was just an apprentice. They'll be like, "Hey, go get this, go get that," and I hated it. Man, I hated that job.
Tough
I
work.
love what I do now.
Hey, how was the pay though? Was the pay okay?
It was given my history and everything.
Yeah.
It was okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, because I've done a lot of jobs like that, but a lot of the shit is super hard labor. I was like, back in the day when I was like 18, I was like, oh shit, this is pretty good. You know?
Yeah.
Let me ask you. So, like, I come from a small town called Clitheroe. They don't have a gang culture there, but there's a lot of dickheads. There was a lot of trouble growing up when I was a kid. And in all the neighboring towns, there was a lot of violence, like fighting. Nothing like, we don't even have guns, so it wasn't like gang violence that you have in America. However, with that said, when I go back home now, still sometimes I have to avoid certain people because certain people are involved in certain things. And I've grown and I know who they are, so I stay away and all the rest of it. How hard is it for you now, given that you have a profile and you've just moved back to LA now? Let's say you go back to one of your neighborhoods or where you know some people. I mean, is it hard to avoid certain people or stay out of trouble?
It is in a sense. I mean, there's a lot of people that I grew up with, or actually, it's not that hard, man. I got a lot of
I
like,
guess they're proud of you.
yeah, they're so proud of me, and no one wants me to get in trouble. No one wants to like bring no negativity around me. Like a lot of people want to see me and say, "Hey, what's up, man? How's it going? Like, got to see you again." And I do come back to the old neighborhood sometimes, and I do, but it's real easy because I mean, my generation, we're all older. We're all ain't nobody doing no crazy stuff like that no more. We all got kids now. We all like
Yeah.
grown up. There's the younger generation are doing their thing. I don't even know any of them. But for the most part,
Yeah.
everybody just has a ton of love for me and a ton of respect, and no one really tries to like bring no negativity around me like that. Even some of the dudes that I wasn't getting along with, the dudes that we were sworn to kill each other. Now they're like, they see me on the streets and they're like, "Hey, like,
Yeah.
props,
They
bro."
can't help. They're like, hey, respect.
Yeah. I mean, I ran into him at a bar not too long ago. Like, "Hey, man, get your money. You're out here doing it. You're making the city proud." So
Yeah.
so we're all grown up now. So it's real easy to avoid all problems.
Good. I'm glad to hear it. If you could, as you say, it's a different generation now and you've moved on and you're a family man and you're a success. If there's someone in a similar situation, I'm not sure how many, what's the term? Is it offensive to say young gangbangers are listening to this? Is that offensive? But I'm not sure how many young kids from those kind of neighborhoods are listening to this podcast. But if there's someone, and there is gangs in England, of course there is. If there's a young man out there or a young woman that's kind of in a similar situation, what advice would you give them, Dan?
I'm 100% sure that there is someone that's watching this, because especially because of me, they know I'm gonna be on here and
Yep.
and I represent a whole culture of I represent LA to its entirety and the gang the little gangbangers out there, you know I I know what you are going through, and I know where you are, where you've been at, and how it is. I mean, like me personally, I would love to go to like the juvenile hall system and kind of like give them a little speech and be like, "Hey man, I was right here where you are. I remember when I was hopeless. I remember that I didn't care about nothing but the gang and the respect, and I was like for them to know that there's another way to gain respect, and there's another way to have pride and to hold it down for your hood, your community, and that's in the cage or in the ring or doing something else, you know. you know, like I would never want to promote fighting within in like in the jail system. I'm gonna be like, hey, go out there and start fighting and shit. But know that there's a way out. If I find a way out, and I was as bad as they come, I was as bad as it gets. But you know, there's a way out. There's a different way of life, and I feel like, you know, just by believing in that and trusting in yourself, and having like, you know, a positive influence, a support team around you. I mean, nothing's impossible. You could do anything, literally.
I always say the same thing. I think it's a lot of people, they just don't believe that their circumstances can change. They just think, what's the point? This is the card that I've been dealt, and this is how my life's going to be. They don't truly believe that if they do the right things and step by step, just try. And yeah, it ain't going to be easy. I think people don't believe that they can change it.
Yeah, I mean, even if it's baby steps, I think people's most fear is taking the first step. And that's the hardest part, you know, for a lot of people. And I think a lot of people are afraid to take the first step because people are scared to change. People aren't willing to sacrifice the time, the energy, and just, you know, have belief within themselves. You know, like it's just a matter of time when you're aiming to do something and headed in the right direction. That's where you're going to be, and that's what you're going to do. So I stuck to the script, and no matter how hard it got, because I've had my ups and downs like crazy. It took me so much to get to this point, and I'm happy I made the sacrifices. You know, so it all worked out for the best.
Yeah, no, congratulations. It's a hell of a story. How many kids? 4?
I got 5.
5 kids. What ages?
I got 16, 11. My boy's about to turn 10. My daughter is 7, and I got a baby boy who's 2.
So when you came home, what, Sunday? When you got home?
Sunday. Yesterday we just had a big old family function. You know, hey man, I'm Mexican. I got a big ass family, man. We had a big old fiesta going on right here. So all the kids were here. You know, everybody, like we rewatched the fight. Oh. Man, the feeling that I got when I saw how invested my kids are when like they're like zoned in, locked in, and man, that watching that yesterday, I'm not gonna lie, it changed a little perspective for me in a sense of like who and why I'm fighting for, and what my kids, I'm their hero, bro. I'm their hero 100%. And that's the best feeling in the world for my kids, watching my kids' face when I'm on TV, getting my hands raised, their smile and their happiness and their faith is just, and on their face is just makes every single hard part of this worth it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sitting there grinning like a dickhead because I remember those moments. I remember coming back and watching it back on the Sunday, just like you said, you know, with all my friends that are flown in for it and just like having a few drinks and reliving the moments and all. Oh, man, it's amazing, Dan. And you've worked your ass off. You've fought all over the world. Last time before this, you were in Saudi Arabia. You know, you kind of got dealt a shitty card against Kelvin Gastelum, but, you know, you still showed up. You give it a hell of a fight. You got to win on Saturday. And I look forward to the future. Thanks for sharing that with us today, Dan. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Hey, thanks for having me, Mike. You're the best, bro. I got nothing but love for you, dog.
My man. Thank you, brother. Enjoy the moment. Can't wait to see you back in the octagon again, and enjoy the rest of your day.
All right, man. Thanks.
My man, take care. Bye-bye.
Yes, sir.